Emma, a young nurse, had always prided herself on her dedication to her work and to her husband, Lucas. She faced life with courage, even while carrying the burden of a chronic illness that weakened her. Her hands were accustomed to a gentle, comforting touch, whether holding a patient's hand or caressing Lucas's face, believing their love could overcome any adversity. But on that fateful morning, everything changed. Emma woke up alone in bed, Lucas's side already cold as if he had left hours ago. A pang of worry shot through her as she got up slowly, trying not to aggravate the constant pain that accompanied her. The silence in the house was unsettling, a harbinger of the disaster to come. Descending the stairs, Emma found Lucas in the living room, his features tense, his gaze lost in a mix of guilt and desperation. Before she could ask what was happening, he spoke in a cold, distant voice, as if narrating events from another life. He had sold the house. Sold her. "Lucas, are you serious?" Emma could barely articulate the words, her body trembling with disbelief and fear. "You sold me along with the house?" Lucas couldn't meet her eyes. "I had no choice, Emma. I was desperate." The feeling of betrayal pierced Emma's heart like a blade. The man she loved, who had promised to care for her in sickness and in health, had betrayed her in the cruelest and most unthinkable way. Tears began to stream down her face, a tangible expression of the consuming pain. "How could you do this to me?" Emma's voice was a whisper filled with agony. She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, the reality of her new existence unfolding before her with ruthless brutality. At that moment, Noah entered the room. A man of cold, calculating presence, with eyes that seemed to measure every weakness and vulnerability of Emma's. "You're my responsibility now," he said emotionlessly. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. It's your choice." Emma looked at Lucas, searching for a sign of remorse or a last gesture of love. But he was hollowed out, consumed by shame and hopelessness from his actions. The pain in her chest intensified, spreading like a dark shadow threatening to engulf her. As Noah led her away, Emma felt herself shatter. Every step she took out of her home was a farewell to her old self, to the life she knew, and to the promises she believed were eternal. The physical pain of her illness now took a back seat to the emotional torment that gnawed at her. Noah showed no compassion as he roughly pulled Emma by the arm, leading her out of the house that was no longer hers. Each step was torture, Emma's frail body resisting every movement, her mind swirling with despair and disbelief. She could hardly believe her own husband had sold her, as if she were a worthless object. Arriving at Noah's new house, a cold, impersonal mansion, Emma once again felt overwhelmed by the reality of her situation. The high walls and long corridors reinforced the sense of isolation and helplessness. Noah released her abruptly in the living room, his sharp eyes fixed on her like blades. "You'll follow my rules here," Noah said, his voice icy. "I have no patience for weaknesses or disobedience." Emma swallowed hard, trying to hold back tears. The pain in her body seemed to intensify under the weight of her new confinement. She felt like a trapped animal, every heartbeat echoing like a war drum in her ears. The humiliation was crushing, but the fear was even worse. She was led to an upstairs room, spacious but devoid of any emotional comfort. Tall windows let in the cold daylight but offered no warmth. Noah left her there, locked in without a word. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her trembling hands, feeling loneliness consume her. The following days were torment. Noah was always around, his watchful eyes never giving her a moment's peace. He wasn't overtly cruel, but his indifference and coldness were almost worse. He made her feel invisible, as if her existence were insignificant. The tension was palpable, every interaction laden with silent threat. Noah didn't allow Emma to leave the house without his permission, and she soon realized she was completely at his mercy. Her chronic illness, once just a challenge, now became an unbearable burden. Without access to her regular medications, Emma felt her body failing more each day. Constant weakness and pain were unwelcome companions, reminding her incessantly of her vulnerability. One night, in a rare moment of introspection, Noah entered Emma's room. He watched her in silence, his tough expression softening briefly. Emma, lying in bed, tried to hide the pain that plagued her. Noah approached slowly, his gaze laden with something Emma couldn't decipher. "You need to take better care of yourself," he said, surprisingly gentle. Emma looked at him, surprised and suspicious. "Why do you care?" She could barely conceal the bitterness in her voice. Noah didn't respond immediately. He looked away, as if struggling with something within himself. "Because you're my responsibility now," he finally answered, his voice returning to its coldness. Those words, though spoken harshly, brought a wave of conflicting emotions to Emma. She wanted to hate him, and a part of her truly did. But another small, desperate part clung to any hint of humanity he might show. Noah left the room, leaving Emma alone with her tumultuous thoughts. Loneliness and suffering became almost unbearable. Each day was a struggle to survive, both physically and emotionally. Emma felt trapped in a spiral of pain, unable to see an end in sight. Nights were the worst, when darkness amplified her fears and loneliness became an overwhelming presence. Noah began to realize that Emma's situation was more serious than he had imagined. The nights of crying and the mornings when she could barely get out of bed were becoming more frequent. He could no longer ignore her fragility, even as he tried to maintain emotional distance. One afternoon, seeing Emma collapse from exhaustion while trying to tidy up the room, Noah was compelled to intervene. He carried her in his arms to the bed, his expression hardened as he carefully laid her down. Emma, waking slowly, met Noah's eyes, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. "You need to rest," he said, his voice firm but with a slight undertone of concern. "I need my medications," Emma replied, her voice a whisper full of despair. "Without them, I won't get better." Noah hesitated, visible internal conflict on his face. He knew that helping Emma wasn't part of his original plan. His goal was to gain her trust, but each caring gesture brought him closer to her, challenging his cold and calculated intentions. He decided to bring Emma her medications, a small act of mercy that he justified to himself as a necessity. Over the days, he started bringing more than just medications. More nutritious food, extra blankets for the cold, and even small kindnesses like flowers for her room. Each act, though small, chipped away at the barrier he had built around his heart. Emma noticed these changes, though she hesitated to trust. Her feelings were a whirlwind of gratitude and suspicion. With every caring gesture, she wondered about Noah's true intentions. It was hard to believe he could genuinely care, after everything that had happened. One night, as Noah handed her a glass of water, Emma stared at him, trying to decipher the complexity in his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What's your plan, Noah?" He looked away, his expression closed off. "You need to be strong to survive." It's as simple as that. But Emma felt there was more. Something in Noah's actions seemed more human, more contradictory to the cold man who had imprisoned her. The conflict in his eyes was visible, an internal struggle he tried to conceal. Time passed, and Noah's care began to have an effect. Emma was getting stronger, but she also became more aware of the dark plan he had in mind. She overheard a conversation between Noah and a mysterious man, confirming her worst fears. He planned to sell her again, profiting from her regained health. Desperation surged back with full force. Emma, now physically stronger but still emotionally devastated, began to plan her escape. Nights were spent awake, considering every possibility, assessing every risk. The fear of failing and being captured again terrified her, but the thought of being sold like an object terrified her even more. One night, while the house lay in complete silence, Emma decided to act. She had hidden some clothes and money she had found, ready to risk everything. With her heart pounding, she crept towards the door, her movements silent as a shadow. But before she could reach freedom, a strong hand grabbed her arm. Noah, his eyes shining with a mix of anger and pain, pulled her back. "What do you think you're doing?" he whispered intensely, trying to remain calm. Emma looked at him, her tears reflecting the full moon. "I can't stay here. I can't be sold again, Noah. Please let me go." Noah held her gaze for a long moment, his face a mask of conflict. The pain in Emma's eyes was undeniable, a mirror of the pain he was beginning to feel himself. The internal battle he faced was fierce, and in that moment, Emma saw his mask start to crack. I can't let you go," he said, but his voice faltered, revealing a vulnerability he was trying to hide. "I thought I could, but I can't. Not anymore." Emma was led back to her room, her hopes shattered. The doors to freedom closed once again, leaving her a prisoner of an increasingly unbearable situation. The pain of being betrayed by Noah, a man who was beginning to care for her, was almost unbearable. Emma felt more alone than ever, her soul crushed by uncertainty and pain. Emma woke up the next morning with a crushing weight on her chest. The failed escape attempt and Noah's pained look were still fresh in her mind. She felt imprisoned not just physically, but emotionally, in a web of conflicting feelings. The desperate need to escape and the growing confusion about Noah's true feelings left her in constant anguish. Noah kept more distance in the following days, as if trying to process his own internal demons. He avoided looking directly at Emma, perhaps fearing what he might see in her eyes. But silent concern was there, evident in his small gestures and in his voice whenever he spoke to her. One night, after a weary journey of thoughts and emotions, Emma decided to confront Noah. She couldn't continue living in a state of fear and uncertainty. Her body was still weak, but her determination pushed her into the room where Noah sat, staring into a crackling fireplace, lost in his thoughts. "Why can't you let me go?" Emma's voice broke the silence of the room, laden with pain and determination. Noah looked up, surprised and vulnerable. "Because..." he began, but his words died in his throat. He rose slowly, walking towards her with heavy steps. "Because I don't know what to do without you here." Emma felt a mix of anger and compassion. "You can't keep me prisoner, Noah. Not after everything that's happened." He looked at her, his eyes shining with a blend of conflicting emotions. "I know," he whispered, "but every time I think about letting you go, something inside me breaks." Emma stepped closer, her breath heavy with emotion. "Then you need to let that go. You need to let me go." Noah held her face in his hands, his eyes searching hers for a sign of hope or forgiveness. I wished it could be different, Emma. I wished you could trust me." "Then prove it," she replied, her voice trembling. "Prove that I can trust you." The tension between them was palpable. Noah sighed heavily and stepped back, as if battling an internal conflict. Emma watched, her heart pounding, a mixture of hope and fear. In the following days, Noah began to change his actions. He brought more medication for Emma, ensured she had everything she needed, and even started unlocking some doors in the house, allowing her to move more freely. But Emma's distrust ran deep. Every small act of kindness came with a shadow of doubt. She still overheard whispers of his plans, phone conversations that confirmed her worst fears. One night, determined to uncover the truth, Emma decided to investigate further. She waited until Noah left for business, his absence always bringing a mix of relief and tension. With silent steps, she made her way to Noah's office, where she knew he kept important documents. As she rummaged through the drawers, her heart raced upon finding a folder filled with papers confirming an impending sale. Emma felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The promises, the care, it was all part of a larger plan, a web of lies suffocating her. The sound of a car pulling up snapped her out of her thoughts. Noah was back. Panic surged through Emma as she tried to hide the documents, but it was too late. Noah entered the office, his eyes immediately meeting hers, realizing what she had discovered. "Emma," he said, his voice laden with a mix of despair and frustration. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she replied, her voice breaking. "You never really wanted to help me. It was all a lie, a facade." Noah took a step towards her, but Emma recoiled, tears streaming freely down her face. "Please, Emma. Hear me out." "No, not anymore," she cried out, pain and anger overflowing. "I'm a person, Noah. I'm not an object to be bought and sold." Noah stopped, his expression crumbling under the intensity of Emma's pain. He knew he had lost something precious, something he might have never truly had. Guilt and regret consumed him, but Emma could no longer bear the pain. The house felt colder than ever. Emma couldn't sleep, her mind replaying the discovery of the documents and the painful conversation with Noah. The thought of being sold again was unbearable, and the sense of betrayal consumed her every fiber. She felt trapped in a spiral of despair, each attempt to find a way out only dragging her deeper into darkness. Noah too couldn't sleep. He paced through the house, guilt and regret gnawing at him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's face, her tears, the pain in her eyes. He knew he had to do something, but he didn't know how. He wanted to change, to be the man Emma could trust, but the chains of his past and his wrong decisions kept him imprisoned. The next morning, Noah decided it was time to confront his feelings. He found Emma in the kitchen, her figure fragile and worn out, trying to prepare a breakfast she probably had no appetite for. He approached slowly, each step a challenge against the fear of rejection once more. "Emma," he began, his voice low and hesitant, "I know you have no reason to believe me, but I need you to listen to me." Emma didn't look up, but he persisted, determined. I started all this for selfish reasons, but things have changed. I have changed." She finally glanced at him, her gaze hard and filled with pain. "Do you expect me to believe that? After everything you've done?" Noah stepped closer, desperation in his expression. "Yes, I do. Because it's the truth. I know I've messed up, lied, but my feelings for you, they are real." Emma felt her heart tighten. She wanted to believe, but the pain and distrust ran deep. "How can I know this isn't another lie?" Noah fell silent for a moment, then took a small envelope from his pocket. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "Read this." Emma took the envelope with trembling hands, opening it slowly. Inside was a letter and a key. The letter, written by Noah, was filled with a sincerity she had never seen before. He confessed all his mistakes, his fears, and the truth about his feelings. The key was to the front gate, her freedom. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Emma," Noah said, his voice full of emotion. "But I want you to know you can leave whenever you want. I won't hold you back anymore." Emma read the letter, each word bringing tears to her eyes. Noah's sincerity touched her, but the fear of being hurt again still loomed large. She held the key, feeling the weight of the decision she had to make. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, looking at Noah with a mix of confusion and hope. "You don't have to say anything right now," Noah replied softly. "I just want you to know you have a choice, that you can be free." The pain in Emma's heart was immense. The key in her hand symbolized more than just physical freedom. It was a choice between trusting or continuing to live in the shadow of fear. She stood up slowly, her steps hesitant as she walked towards the door. Noah watched her, his heart pounding frantically. Each of Emma's steps felt like an eternity. When she finally reached the door, she stopped, looking down at the key in her hands. The silence in the house was deafening. Emma took a deep breath, turning to look at Noah one last time. "Would you really let me go?" Noah nodded, his expression solemn. "Yes, I just want you to be happy, whether here or somewhere else." Tears streamed down Emma's face freely. She looked at the key again, feeling the weight of the decision. Her heart was shattered, but a small flicker of hope began to shine. She put the key back into the envelope and walked back to Noah. I don't know if I can trust you yet," she said, her voice trembling. "But I want to try." Noah couldn't hide the emotion in his eyes. He took a step towards her, hesitant, as if afraid to scare her away. "I promise I won't let you down again." The following days were a mix of hope and uncertainty for Emma. Every gesture from Noah seemed genuine, yet distrust still gnawed at her. She kept the key hidden, a constant reminder of her potential for freedom, but also a symbol of Noah's renewed promise. Noah, in turn, did everything he could to prove his intentions. He was more attentive, helping Emma regain her health, bringing her medications, and preparing nutritious meals. His actions were small but meaningful, striving to regain Emma's trust each day. But the past has a way of resurfacing, and for Emma it came in the form of Lucas. One afternoon, while Emma was in the garden, breathing the fresh air she had missed so much, she heard familiar footsteps behind her. Turning around, her heart almost stopped at the sight of Lucas, thinner and with an expression of deep regret. "Emma," he called out, his voice weak and hesitant. I needed to see you." Emma felt a wave of conflicting emotions. The man who had betrayed her, sold her like merchandise, was now before her, pleading. "What do you want, Lucas?" Her voice came out colder than intended, but the resentment was hard to contain. "I know I messed up," Lucas began, tears welling in his eyes. "I can't change what I did, but I'm here to ask for your forgiveness. I lost everything, Emma, and I realized you were the only thing that really mattered." Emma felt the weight of Lucas's words, but the pain of his betrayal was still raw. "You sold me, Lucas. How do you expect me to forgive you?" Before he could respond, Noah appeared. The tension among the three was palpable, like a storm about to erupt. Noah positioned himself between Emma and Lucas, protective in stance. "What are you doing here?" Noah asked firmly. "I just want to talk to her," Lucas replied, his voice trembling. Feeling caught between the two men who had hurt her the most, Emma stepped forward. "I'll talk to him, Noah. Alone." Noah hesitated but nodded, stepping back to give them space. Emma walked with Lucas to a bench in the garden, where they sat in silence for a moment. The gentle breeze contrasted with the storm of emotions inside her. "Emma," Lucas began again, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I was desperate and did a horrible thing. I lost everything, and in the process I realized I lost you too." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she tried to maintain her composure. "Why now, Lucas? Why come after me now when I'm trying to rebuild my life?" Lucas held her hands, his eyes pleading. "Because you're the only thing I have left, Emma. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I just want a chance to make things right." Emma withdrew her hands from his, her mind in turmoil. "I don't know if I can, Lucas. So much has happened. And now with Noah. Has he really changed?" Lucas interrupted, his eyes filled with doubt. "Can you trust him?" That question echoed in Emma's mind. Could she truly trust Noah? His recent actions showed a different man, but the emotional scars were too deep to vanish so quickly. Before she could respond, a loud noise came from the house. Emma and Lucas rushed inside, finding Noah in the study, confronting an unfamiliar man. "What's going on?" Emma cried out, her voice filled with fear and concern. Noah turned, his face pale. "Emma, this is Richard. He came to collect a debt from me." Emma felt the ground disappear beneath her again. "More debts? Noah, what have you done?" Richard, a burly and intimidating man, looked at Emma with a sinister smile. "Looks like your friend here couldn't pay what he owes, and I've come to collect." Noah tried to intervene, but Richard shoved him aside. "And you, darling, seem quite valuable. Maybe I can take you as payment." Emma was paralyzed with terror. The nightmares she thought she had left behind were returning with brutal force. Noah stood up, his face a mask of determination. "You're not taking her." Lucas, who had been silent until then, stepped forward. "You can't do this, Richard. I have some money. Please leave her alone." The tension in the room was suffocating. Emma looked between Noah and Lucas, both ready to fight for her, but her own emotions left her confused and powerless. She knew she needed to find a way out of this situation, but the walls of the house seemed to be closing in around her. The tension in the air was almost palpable, with everyone in the room immersed in suffocating silence. Emma, her heart racing, looked desperately at Noah and Lucas, both ready to protect her but burdened with their own guilt. Richard, with a cold smile, stepped forward. "Do you think you can stop me? That you can just offer a bit of money and resolve everything? The debt is too large to be settled that easily." Noah positioned himself between Emma and Richard, his gaze determined. "I take responsibility, but Emma has nothing to do with this. Leave her out of it." Lucas, not wanting to lag behind, approached Richard. I'll help pay. I'll do whatever it takes. But you won't touch her." Feeling like a puppet in the midst of this storm, Emma finally found her voice. "Enough!" she shouted, her emotions overflowing. "I'm not an object to be traded. You don't have the right to decide my fate." Richard looked at her, intrigued by her sudden strength. "Interesting," he murmured. "But you see, my dear, this isn't about rights. It's about debt and repayment." Emma's words echoed in the room but seemed not to reach the hardened hearts of the men around her. She felt anger and powerlessness intertwine within her, a volatile mix threatening to explode. Sensing Emma's pain, Noah tried to defuse the situation. "Richard, please give me time. I'll find a way to pay you, but don't take Emma." Richard pondered for a moment, then smirked sarcastically. "You have a week, Noah. 1 week to gather the money. After that, she's coming with me." He turned and left the house, leaving behind a cloud of tension and despair. Emma felt herself collapse, her strength finally leaving her. Noah caught her before she fell, his expression full of anguish. "I'm sorry, Emma. Truly." Lucas also approached, but Emma raised her hand, pushing him away. "Not now, Lucas. I need to think." She retreated from both men, going to her room where she locked herself in and let the tears flow freely. The sensation of being a pawn in a cruel game overwhelmed her. She felt crushed under the weight of betrayal, debt, and the constant threat of being sold again. Noah and Lucas stayed in the room, both consumed by guilt and a desperate need to find a solution. Noah more than ever knew he had to act. He couldn't let Emma suffer any longer. The next morning, Noah approached Emma with a proposal. "Emma, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but I need you to trust me once more. I'll find a way to pay Richard. I promise I won't let him take you." Emma looked at Noah, her eyes red from crying. "How can I trust you after everything? How can I believe this isn't just another lie?" Noah took a deep breath, trying to contain the pain in his voice. "Because this time I'll show you. I'll do the impossible to protect you. You don't deserve any more suffering." Listening to their conversation, Lucas approached. "Emma, I want to help too. I know I can't undo the past, but I'll do whatever it takes to protect you now." Emma felt torn. Two men who had betrayed her in different ways were now promising protection. Confusion and pain consumed her, but she knew she had to find a solution, not just for herself but to end this cycle of suffering. Noah and Lucas joined forces, despite their mutual distrust, working tirelessly to gather the necessary money. Each day was a race against time, and the tension between them was evident. But their focus was clear: to save Emma from another cruel fate. The week passed in a blur, filled with desperate efforts and sleepless nights. Emma watched, her heart a battleground of hope and fear. When the deadline arrived, Noah and Lucas approached Richard with everything they had managed to gather. Richard looked at the money, a look of disdain on his face. "This isn't enough," he said coldly. "But I'm a fair man. I'll take what you've got and leave her alone." For now. The feeling of relief was intense but brief. Emma knew it was only a temporary truce. As Richard walked away, she turned to Noah and Lucas, both exhausted and relieved. "Thank you," she whispered, tears falling again. "But it's not over yet, is it?" Noah held her hand, his gaze firm and determined. "We'll find a way to end this, Emma. I promise." Lucas nodded, a look of sincere regret on his face. "We'll protect you. Always." The feeling of relief was fleeting. Emma knew that the peace she felt was temporary, a brief respite in the midst of the storm. Each night, her dreams were haunted by Richard and his constant threats. The days passed slowly, with a mix of hope and fear permeating every moment. Noah and Lucas worked tirelessly, trying to find a permanent solution to protect Emma. But resources were scarce and time seemed to slip through their fingers like sand. The pressure mounted, the tension was palpable, and Emma felt the weight of her situation more and more. One night, while Noah and Lucas were discussing strategies in the office, Emma found a letter in her room. It was a simple envelope, with her name handwritten on it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message that sent chills down her spine. "I know where you are. You can't hide forever." Fear gripped Emma, her body trembling as she held the letter. She knew Richard wouldn't give up easily. She felt suffocated, each beat of her heart a reminder of the constant threat looming over her. Emma rushed to the office, her hands trembling as she handed the letter to Noah and Lucas. Both read it in silence, their expressions turning grim. Noah looked at Emma, a silent promise in his eyes. "We will protect you, Emma," he said firmly. "We won't let him hurt you." Lucas nodded, his face a mask of determination. "We'll figure this out. Together." Despite their assurances, Emma's fear did not diminish. She felt like a puppet in a cruel game, her strings being pulled by forces she couldn't control. The hope that had begun to sprout within her was being crushed by imminent terror. That night, Emma decided she couldn't live like this anymore. She needed to take action, find a way to regain control of her life. While Noah and Lucas slept, exhausted from their efforts, Emma searched the house for anything that could help her protect herself. In the basement, she found an old box filled with documents and photos. As she examined them, Emma discovered something that made her stop. An old photo of Noah and Richard together. Their young, smiling faces contrasted sharply with the men they had become. Emma felt a wave of confusion and betrayal. What did this mean? Why did Noah have a photo with Richard? Her thoughts were a whirlwind, fear and anger mixing into a storm of emotions. She confronted Noah the next morning, holding the photo as if it were a weapon. "What is this, Noah? Why do you have a photo with Richard?" Noah looked at the photo, his expression closing off. I can explain, Emma." "Then explain," she shouted, tears of anger and frustration streaming down her face. "I deserve to know the truth." Noah took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on hers. "Richard and I grew up together. We were friends, but he changed. Started getting involved in the wrong things, debts, crimes. When I found out, I tried to distance myself, but it was too late. He used our past against me, threatened my family. And now he's using you." Emma felt the world crumbling around her. The revelation was devastating. "So all this confusion, all this suffering, it's because of your past with him?" Noah nodded, his face marked by pain. "I wanted to protect you, Emma. I wanted to do the right thing, but Richard is relentless. I'm so sorry." Lucas, who had heard everything from the doorway, entered the room, his expression equally shocked. "This doesn't change what we need to do. We have to find a way to end this once and for all." Emma looked at the two men, feeling more lost than ever. The weight of the truth crushed her, but it also gave her a new determination. She wouldn't be a victim anymore. She wouldn't let her fate be decided by others. "So let's do this," she said, her voice firm. "Let's end Richard. Together." The following days were intense preparation. Noah, Lucas, and Emma joined forces, each contributing what they could. Emma found an inner strength she didn't know she had, her determination renewed by the need to protect herself and those who cared about her. The night of the showdown finally arrived. Noah had arranged a meeting with Richard at a remote location, promising to pay off the remaining debt. Emma and Lucas stayed hidden, ready to act if anything went wrong. The encounter was tense, every word laden with threat and distrust. Richard, with his cold smile, had no idea what was coming. When Noah handed over the money, Richard laughed, a cruel sound echoing in the night. "Did you really think this would be enough?" Richard mocked. "I'll always have something against you, Noah. I'll always have something to use." Before Richard could react, Emma and Lucas appeared. Emma, with a courage that surprised everyone, stood before Richard. "It's over, Richard. You won't threaten us anymore." Richard laughed again, but this time there was hesitation in his eyes. "And what are you going to do, little girl? Arrest me?" Lucas, with newfound resolve, spoke. "Yes, we will. Together." Tension reached its peak. Richard, realizing he was cornered, tried to flee, but Noah and Lucas were ready. A fierce fight ensued, each blow carrying years of fear and suffering. Emma watched, her heart in her throat, knowing that this moment would decide her future. Finally, Richard was brought down, his arrogance shattered. Noah and Lucas, exhausted and injured, turned to Emma. "It's over," Noah said, his voice hoarse. Emma ran to them, her tears falling freely. "Is it really?" Lucas nodded. "Yes, Emma. It's over." Emma stood in the middle of the clearing, her arms around Noah and Lucas, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Richard lay unconscious on the ground, defeated, but the threat he represented still loomed like a shadow. Tears of relief mixed with pain, and she felt an overwhelming rush of emotions. "Let's get out of here," Noah said softly, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "We need to make sure we're safe." They slowly moved away, helping each other back to the house. Each step was heavy, but laden with a newfound hope. When they finally arrived, Emma collapsed onto the couch, feeling exhaustion take over her body. Noah and Lucas sat beside her, each carrying their own emotional and physical scars. "Emma," Lucas began, his voice breaking, "I wanted to apologize for everything. I know I can never undo what I did, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry." Emma looked at him, her eyes still welled with tears. "Lucas, I don't know if I can forgive you completely. What you did broke me in a way I can't just forget. But I see that you're trying to change, and that means something." Lucas nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude and sadness. "I understand. Thank you for hearing me out, at least." Noah held Emma's hand, his expression equally pained. "Emma, I owe you an explanation too. My past with Richard brought so much pain to all of us. I never wanted you to get caught up in this, and I know I failed to protect you." Emma squeezed his hand, feeling the sincerity in his words. "Noah, what matters now is that you're here by my side. We've been through so much together and it's changed us. I don't know what the future holds, but I know we need to be honest with each other." The silence that followed was heavy, but also filled with a new understanding. Each of them was dealing with their own scars, but there was a sense of unity that had seemed impossible before. The following days were dedicated to recovery. Emma, Noah, and Lucas worked together to ensure that Richard could no longer threaten them. The physical wounds were beginning to heal, but the emotional ones were still deep. Emma spent many nights awake, reflecting on everything that had happened, trying to find a way forward. One afternoon, while Noah and Lucas were out taking care of some business, Emma received an unexpected visitor. James, her old friend, walked into the house with a concerned smile. "Emma," he said softly, "I heard about what happened. I came as soon as I could." Emma felt an immediate sense of relief upon seeing James. He was a figure from her past, someone who had always been a rock in her life. She rushed into his arms, hugging him tightly. "James, I'm so glad to see you." James held Emma gently, his hands comforting her. "I'll always be here for you, Emma. Always." They sat down together, and Emma recounted everything that had happened, from Lucas's betrayal to the battle with Richard. James listened quietly, his face showing the pain he felt for his friend. "You're stronger than you realize, Emma," he finally said. "To go through all that and still be standing. It's admirable." Emma smiled, but her eyes were full of tears. "I don't know if I'm strong, James. I feel so broken, so tired." James held her hands, looking directly into her eyes. "You're not alone. I'm here now. We'll get through this together." When Noah and Lucas returned, they were surprised to see James, but they welcomed his presence. He brought a new energy to the house, a sense of security and support that Emma desperately needed. Together, they began to plan a future free from Richard's shadow. Weeks passed, and life slowly began to stabilize. Emma found strength within herself that she never knew she had. With the support of Noah, Lucas, and James, she began to rebuild herself. Each day was a step toward healing, a move toward emotional freedom. One evening, as the group gathered for dinner, Emma looked around the table and felt a wave of gratitude. "I just want to say thank you to all of you. I don't know how I would have gotten through all this without each one of you." Noah, Lucas, and James smiled at her, each with an expression of affection and admiration. "We're in this together," Noah said, his voice full of emotion. "And we always will be." Emma's life gradually settled into a rhythm of normalcy over the months, a feeling that had seemed unreachable for so long. Though she still carried deep scars, there was a renewed sense of hope and strength propelling her forward. Noah, Lucas, and James stood by her side, each playing a crucial role in her recovery journey. Noah dedicated himself to ensuring Emma felt safe, creating a warm and stable environment for her. Lucas, determined to make amends, found ways to assist around the house and support Emma in her daily needs. James, always present, offered a comforting shoulder and words of solace during the toughest moments. One afternoon, as Emma strolled through the garden, she felt a gentle breeze caress her face. The flowers were in full bloom, and the air was filled with the scent of spring. She sat on a bench, closing her eyes and allowing herself a moment of peace. "Emma," James's voice sounded softly behind her. He approached and sat down beside her. "I've been thinking a lot about what you've been through. You're one of the strongest people I know." Emma opened her eyes and smiled at James, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I wouldn't have made it without you, James. Your friendship means the world to me." James held her hand, his gaze meeting hers with sincere intensity. "I'll always be here for you, Emma. Always." They sat in silence for a moment, simply enjoying each other's company. Emma felt a wave of emotions, a mix of love, gratitude, and fear of what the future might bring. But with James by her side, she felt stronger. Noah and Lucas observed from a respectful distance, understanding the depth of the bond between Emma and James. There was a silent acceptance, an understanding that Emma's well-being was paramount. One evening, as they all gathered in the living room, Emma felt a need to speak. She looked at the three men in her life, feeling a deep connection with each of them. "I want all of you to know how much you mean to me. Each one of you in your own way has helped me find the strength to keep going." Noah smiled, his eyes full of affection. "You're an incredible woman, Emma. We just want to see you happy." Lucas, tears in his eyes, nodded. "I can never undo what I've done, but I'll be here to support you always." James squeezed her hand, his expression showing how much he cared. You deserve all the happiness in the world, Emma, and we'll do everything we can to ensure that." Their words deeply touched Emma. She felt surrounded by love and support, something that had seemed impossible not long ago. But at the same time, a decision needed to be made. She knew she couldn't continue being torn between these three men, each representing a crucial part of her life. In the days that followed, Emma reflected intensely on her future. She knew she needed to be honest with herself and with them. Finally, on a clear and sunny morning, she called Noah, Lucas, and James for a conversation. "I've been thinking a lot," Emma began, her voice firm yet filled with emotion. "And I need to be honest with all of you. Each of you means so much to me in different ways. But I can't continue like this torn. I need to follow my heart." Noah and Lucas exchanged worried glances, while James watched Emma with an expression of understanding and support. "What have you decided, Emma?" Noah asked softly. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment. "I love each of you, but in different ways. Lucas, you were my husband, and despite everything, I know your remorse is genuine. Noah, you helped me find strength in moments of despair. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. But James, you've always been there for me from the beginning. You're my rock, my safe harbor." James held her hand, his eyes shining with emotion. "Emma, I've always wanted the best for you, no matter your choice. And if you choose me, I promise to love and care for you for the rest of my life." Emma smiled, tears freely flowing down her cheeks. "I choose you, James. I choose the love that has always supported me, that has always made me feel safe." Noah and Lucas, though clearly affected, accepted Emma's decision with dignity. "We only want your happiness, Emma," Noah said, his voice wavering slightly. "If James is who makes you happy, then we fully support you." Lucas nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I just want you to know that I'll always be here for you, Emma. Always." Emma embraced Noah and Lucas, feeling the weight of her decision but also the peace that came with it. Turning to James, she felt a new hope bloom within her. In the days that followed, Emma and James began planning a future together. They knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but they were ready to face them side by side. Noah and Lucas, true to their promises, remained friends and loyal supporters. One afternoon, as Emma and James walked hand in hand through the garden, she felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. "We did it," she whispered, squeezing James's hand. "We got through it all." James smiled at her, his eyes filled with love. "Yes, we did. And now we have a bright future ahead of us." Days passed, and Emma and James began to build a new life together. James's constant presence of love and support brought Emma a sense of security she hadn't felt in a long time. They spent mornings in the garden, afternoons exploring the city, and evenings discussing their future. But, as often happens in life, not everything was so simple. One day, while organizing some old papers, Emma found a letter addressed to her. It was from Richard, sent before their final confrontation. Her hands trembled as she opened the letter, and its contents chilled her to the bone. "Emma, you think you're free, but I will always be around. You can never escape what happened." She collapsed to the ground, feeling like all the progress she had made was crumbling in an instant. James found her there, her face pale and tears silently falling. "Emma, what happened?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She handed him the letter, unable to speak. James read it quickly, his face becoming a mask of concern and anger. "This man cannot continue to torment you. We have to do something." Emma shook her head, feeling helpless. "I thought I was free, James, but he still haunts me." James embraced her, his voice firm and comforting. "We will overcome this, Emma. Together. You're not alone." Determined to put an end to Richard's shadow once and for all, James contacted Noah and Lucas. They gathered that evening, forming a plan to ensure Richard could never threaten Emma again. The group decided to take the case to the police, presenting all the evidence of Richard's threats and criminal activities. The investigation was swift and efficient. Richard was arrested again, this time with enough evidence to ensure he wouldn't get out anytime soon. The news brought tangible relief to everyone, especially Emma. She finally felt like she could breathe without fear. However, even with Richard out of their lives, the traumas of the past still weighed heavily on Emma. She began therapy with James's constant support. The sessions were emotional and challenging, bringing up painful memories and unresolved feelings. One day, after a particularly intense session, Emma sat in the park watching children play. James joined her, holding her hand. "How was the session today?" he asked gently. Emma sighed, looking at him with sad eyes. "It was hard, reliving everything. Sometimes I feel like I'll never fully heal." James pulled her into a hug, his arms strong and comforting around her. "You've come a long way, Emma. Healing takes time, but I'm here with you, every step of the way." James's words were a balm to Emma's heart. She knew the journey would be long and challenging, but with him by her side, she felt stronger. Each day was a new opportunity to rebuild her life, to find happiness and peace. Noah and Lucas continued to be a constant presence, always ready to help and support. They formed a kind of family, united by shared experiences and a determination to protect and care for each other. One evening, as they dined together, Emma stood up, holding a glass of wine. "I just want to thank all of you," she said, her voice full of emotion, "for everything. I don't know how I would have managed without each of you." Noah, Lucas, and James smiled, their eyes shining with affection and admiration. "You're an inspiration to all of us, Emma," Noah said, "and we're so proud of you." Lucas nodded, tears in his eyes. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever known, and we'll always be here for you." James, holding Emma's hand, added, "I love you, Emma, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds for us." Emma felt a wave of gratitude and love wash over her. She had been through so much, but finally, she felt surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. And for the first time in a long while, she looked to the future with hope and joy. As the night progressed, they laughed, shared stories, and made plans for the future. Emma knew there was still a long road ahead, but with James, Noah, and Lucas by her side, she was ready to face any challenge. Weeks passed, and winter began to give way to spring. Each new flower bud, every ray of sunlight, seemed to reflect Emma's slow process of healing. But even with the return of hope and normalcy, there were days when the pain and trauma resurfaced, intense and relentless. One of those mornings was particularly tough for Emma. She woke abruptly, a nightmare transporting her back to captivity, to the feeling of being treated like a commodity. She sat up in bed, gasping for breath, her body covered in sweat. James, awakened by her distress, immediately embraced her. "It was just a dream, Emma," he whispered, holding her tightly. "I'm here. You're safe." Emma closed her eyes, trying to absorb the calm James exuded. "I know, but sometimes it feels so real. The pain, the fear. It's like I'm back there again." James held her even tighter, his heart aching for her. "You're the strongest person I know. We'll get through this one day at a time." The days continued with ups and downs, and Emma clung to moments of peace and joy like a castaway clings to driftwood. She found solace in small things: the laughter of a child in the park, the warmth of the sun on her face, the sense of security by James's side. One afternoon, Emma decided to revisit the place where her life had changed drastically, the house where it all began. James hesitated, but understood Emma's need to confront her demons. "Are you sure?" he asked, concerned. "Yes," she replied firmly. "I need to face my past in order to move forward." They arrived at the house, now empty and abandoned. Emma walked through the corridors, each step echoing with painful memories. She stopped in the room where Lucas had betrayed her, where Noah had kept her captive. Tears came, but this time she let them flow. allowing herself to feel the pain and release the accumulated anguish. James stood beside her, silent and supportive. "You're amazing," he said softly. "Every tear you shed is a testament to your strength." Emma looked at him, her eyes shining with determination. "I'm not the same person who walked into this house. I'm stronger now, and I'm ready to leave this past behind." As they left the house, Emma felt a new lightness in her heart. She knew the journey of healing was far from over, but that step was crucial. With James by her side, she felt she could face anything. In the days that followed, Emma began to engage in activities that made her feel alive again. She resumed old hobbies, started volunteering at a local shelter, and even began a gardening course, something she had always loved. One afternoon, while working in the garden, Noah appeared, his face showing a mixture of relief and nervousness. "Emma," he began hesitantly, "I wanted to tell you, I'm leaving town. I got a job in another city and I think it's time to move on." Emma felt a pang of sadness, but also understood Noah's need to start afresh. "I'll miss you, Noah. You've done so much for me. More than I could ever thank you for." Noah smiled, his eyes shining with conflicting emotions. "I should be the one thanking you. You've taught me so much about strength and resilience. I hope you find all the happiness you deserve." They embraced, a hug filled with farewells and new beginnings. Emma felt a mix of emotions but also a renewed peace. She knew that even with Noah leaving, there would always be a connection between them, a mutual gratitude that transcended distance. As the days turned into weeks, Emma and James continued to build their life together. They made plans for the future, dreamed of travels, a family, a life filled with love and laughter. The darkness of the past still occasionally surfaced, but it was becoming more and more a distant shadow. One night, as they dined under the stars in the garden Emma had helped create, James held her hand, his eyes full of love and determination. "Emma, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to face every challenge, celebrate every victory together. Will you marry me?" Emma felt tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of pure joy. "Yes, James. Yes, I will." The wedding day dawned with a clear sky and a gentle breeze, as if nature itself was in perfect harmony with the happiness Emma felt. She was surrounded by loved ones, each playing a vital role in her healing journey. James, ever by her side, epitomized the love and security she had sought for so long. Emma prepared in a quiet room, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her veil. Lucas, now a close friend and confidant, entered the room, his eyes shining with emotion. "Emma, you look stunning," he said softly, trying to hold back tears. She smiled, feeling the sincerity in his words. "Thank you, Lucas. It means so much to me to have you here today." Lucas took her hands, his gaze filled with gratitude and remorse. "I'll never fully forgive myself for what I did, but seeing you happy, seeing you move forward, it gives me hope. You deserve all the happiness in the world, Emma." They embraced, a hug filled with forgiveness and new promises. When Lucas left, Emma took a deep breath, feeling more prepared for the next step. The wedding was a simple yet meaningful event. In the garden they had cultivated together, Emma and James exchanged vows, surrounded by friends and family who witnessed the union of two souls who had found strength and love in each other. As Emma walked down the aisle, she felt light, as if each step was a release from the past. James awaited her at the altar, his face lit up with a smile that reflected the depth of his love for her. When she reached his side, he took her hands, his eyes fixed on hers. "Emma," he began, his voice full of emotion, "you've transformed my life in ways I never thought possible. I promise to love you, protect you, and stand by your side through all moments, good and bad. You're my soulmate, and I look forward to every day with you." Tears streamed down Emma's cheeks as she replied, "James, you brought light into my life when all seemed lost. You've shown me what true, unconditional love is. I promise to love you, support you, and be your partner in all the adventures life brings us. You're my everything, and I'm so happy to finally be by your side." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, James and Emma kissed amid applause and tears of joy. The love and happiness in the air were palpable, each person present feeling the depth of the moment. The reception was a celebration of life, love, and overcoming. Noah, who had returned for the occasion, toasted to the newlyweds, his words filled with emotion. "Emma and James, you're living proof that love and resilience can overcome any obstacle. May you have a long and happy life together." Lucas also made a toast, his voice trembling with emotion. "Emma, you've taught me about forgiveness and redemption. James, you're a lucky man. Take good care of her. To both of you, I wish all the happiness in the world." Under the stars, Emma and James danced, each step a celebration of their journey. The garden, illuminated by soft lights, felt like a fairy tale setting. As they danced, Emma felt a deep peace, a certainty that no matter the challenges ahead, she and James would face them together. In the months that followed, Emma and James settled into a life of love and companionship. Each day was a new adventure filled with laughter and precious moments. They traveled, explored new places, and built memories that would form the foundation of their future. One afternoon, while strolling through the garden, Emma stopped, holding James's hand. "I have a surprise for you," she said, her eyes shining with happiness. James looked at her, curious. "What is it?" Emma smiled, placing his hand on her belly. "We're expecting a baby, James." James was silent for a moment, his eyes filling with tears of pure joy. "Emma, this is incredible. I love you so much." They embraced, feeling the new life growing within her. For Emma, it was a symbol of renewal, proof that love truly heals all wounds. In the months that followed, as they prepared for the baby's arrival, Emma felt stronger and more complete than ever. With James by her side, she knew she was ready to face any challenge. Together, they built a family based on love, respect, and resilience.